Hello there, this is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So, I promised this one ages ago, so thank you for those that requested it. We're going to look at Celtic Football Club from the Scottish Premier League in today's deep dive into a club's history. So we're going to look at all of the key information about them, look at their formation, and then look at their achievements and their current squad. And if you want your club or a club that you want to learn more about featured in the next edition, then drop a comment and I will get through as many as I can over the coming weeks and months. So hope you enjoy the video. If you do at any point, feel free to click like. And if you're new to this channel, we are an ASMR channel to help you relax after a tough day, maybe even fall asleep. I mostly talk in soft spoken, but I do occasionally whisper as well. And this channel is just about football and football related things. So feel free to click subscribe. So, Celtic. The Celtic Football Club is the full name, the Boys with an H, the Celts and the Hoops. Founded on the 6th of November 1887, 135 years ago, making it undoubtedly one of the oldest football clubs in the world, right? Ground is Celtic Park. We will take a look at that in just a moment. 60,411 capacity. The owner is Celtic PLC. The chairman is Peter Lawwell. And Ante Postecoglou, the Australian, is current manager. And last year they finished first in the Premier League to qualify for the Champions League group stages. Let's take a look at that amazing stadium then. So the distinctive colours of Celtic, that green and the white. So that's the location of Celtic Park within Glasgow itself and then within Scotland. The record attendance in 1938 on the 1st of January. Hopefully not too many people had hangovers that day. 83,500 of them watched city rivals Rangers. And there's a Deso grass hybrid, interesting. Let's have a look, see if oh yeah, that's lovely. It's a great stadium, I gotta say. I've always liked it. There's the statue of Jock Stein outside. If it ever loads, there we are. John Jock Stein, CBE. Celtic have considered the possibility of increasing the capacity by redeveloping the main stand. A completed two-tier bowl stadium would give Celtic Park a capacity of nearly 75,000. Wow. Okay, let's do a dive into what the club are about then. This is the snapshot. The Celtic Football Club, commonly known as Celtic, is not Celtic. Incidentally, it is pronounced with an S. Because I didn't know that for years. I always used to call them Celtic. Because as a Welshman, I am Celtic, but the club is Celtic. It is a Scottish professional football club based in Glasgow, which plays in the Scottish Premiership. The club was founded in 1887 with the purpose of alleviating poverty in the immigrant Irish population in the East End of Glasgow. That does make a lot of sense actually, because they are well known to have affiliations with the Republic of Ireland. They played their first match in May 1888, a friendly match against Rangers, which Celtic won 5-2, so even back then, massive scorelines, because there always is. Celtic established themselves within Scottish football, winning 6 successive league titles during the first decade of the 20th century. The club enjoyed their greatest successes during the 60s and 70s under Jock Stein, when they won 9 consecutive league titles and the 67 European Cup in Lisbon against Inter Milan. Wow. Celtic have played in green and white throughout their history, adopting hoops in 1903, which have been used ever since. Celtic are one of only 5 clubs in the world to have won over 100 trophies in their history. The club has won the Scottish League Championship 52 times, most recently last year, the Scottish Cup 40 times and the Scottish League Cup 21 times. The club's greatest season was 66-67 when Celtic became the first British team to win the European Cup, also winning the Scottish League Championship, the Scottish Cup, the League Cup and the Glasgow Cup. Celtic also reached the 70 European Cup final and the 2003 UEFA Cup final, losing both. That time it was against Porto. I remember that match. Didn't big John Hartson play in that match? Celtic have been, I think I watched it actually, Celtic have a long-standing fierce rivalry with Rangers, and the clubs are known as the Old Firm. Seen by some as the world's biggest football derby, the club's fan base was estimated in 2003 as being around 9 million worldwide, and there are more than 160 Celtic sporting clubs in over 20 countries. An estimated 80,000 fans travelled to Seville for the 2003 UEFA Cup final, and their extraordinarily loyal and sporting behaviour, in spite of defeat, earned the club Fair Play awards from FIFA and UEFA. One of my best friends is a massive Celtic fan, actually. Okay, history. Celtic Football Club was formally constituted at a meeting in St Mary's Church Hall in East Row Street, now Forbes Street, Colton, Glasgow, by Irish Marist? Is it Marist or Marist? Brother Walfrid, on the 6th of November 1887, with the purpose of alleviating poverty in the East End of Glasgow by raising money for the charity Walfrid had instituted the Poor Children's Dinner Table. Walfrid's move to establish the club as a means of fundraising was largely inspired by the example of Hibernian, which was formed out of the immigrant Irish population a few years earlier in Edinburgh. Walfrid's own suggestion of the name Celtic, pronounced Celtic, was intended to reflect the club's Irish and Scottish roots and was adopted at the same meeting. The club has the official nickname The Boys. However, according to the Celtic, there I go, press office, the newly established club was known to many as the Bold Boys. A postcard from the early 20th century that pictured the team and read The Bold Boys, with an H, is the first known example of the unique spelling. The extra H imitates the spelling system of Gaelic, wherein the letter B is often accompanied by the letter H, but in that case it's pronounced V, I think, so it would be the Bold Boys. But what do I know? On the 20th of May 1888, Celtic played their first match against Rangers. They won 5-2 in what was described as a friendly encounter. Never, no. Neil McCallum scored Celtic's first goal. Celtic's first kit consisted of a white shirt with a green collar, black shorts and emerald green socks. The original club crest was a simple green cross on a red oval background. In 1889, Celtic reached the final of the Scottish Cup in their first season, taking part in the competition, but lost 2-1 to third Lanark. Celtic reached the final again in 1892, and this time were victorious after defeating Queen's Park 5-1, the club's first major honour. Several months later, the club moved to its new ground, Celtic Park, and in the following season won the Scottish League Championship for the first time. In 1895, Celtic set the league record for the highest home score when they beat Dundee 11-0. In 1897, the club became a private limited company, and Willie Malley was appointed as the first secretary manager. Between 1905 and 1910, Celtic won the Scottish League Championship 6 times in a row. They also won the Scottish Cup both in 1907 and 08. the first time a Scottish club had ever won the double. During World War I, Celtic won the league 4 times in a row, including 62 matches unbeaten between November 1915 and April 1917. The mid-20s saw the emergence of Jimmy McGrory as one of the most prolific goalscorers in British football history. Over a 16-year playing career, he scored 550 goals in 547 games. Messi would be jealous. Including 16 goals for Clydebank during a season on loan in the 23-24 season. A British goal-scoring record to this day. In January 1940, Willie Melley's retirement was announced. He was 71 and had served the club in varying roles for nearly 52 years, initially as a player and then as a secretary manager. Jimmy McStay became manager of the club in February 1940. He spent over 5 years in this role, although due to the Second World War no official competitive league football took place during this time. The Scottish Football League and the Scottish Cup were suspended, and in their place regional league competitions were set up. Celtic did not do particularly well during the war years, but did win the victory in Europe Cup held in May 1945 as a one-off football match to celebrate victory in Europe Day. Let's skip a little bit then. I'm going to go to Martin O'Neill, who took charge of the club in June 2000. Under his leadership, Celtic won 3 SPL championships out of 5, losing the others by very small margins. And in his first season in charge, the club also won the domestic treble, making O'Neill only the second Celtic manager to do so after Jock Stein. In 2003, around 80,000 fans showed up in Seville to watch the UEFA Cup final. Celtic lost 3-2 to Porto after extra time, despite 2 goals from Henrik Larsson during normal time. Legend. The conduct of the thousands of travelling fans received widespread praise and earned them Fair Play awards. Gordon Strachan was announced as O'Neill's replacement in June 2005, and after winning the SPL title in his first year in charge, he became only the 3rd Celtic manager to win 3 titles in a row. What an amazing personality that guy's got. Watching him, I think the only equivalent nowadays is Sean Dyche in a interview. Yeah, such a personality. He also guided Celtic to their first UEFA Champions League knockout stage in 2006-2007 and repeated the feat in 2007-2008 before departing the club in May 2009 after failing to win the league title. Tony Mowbray took charge of the club in June 2009 and he was succeeded a year later by Neil Lennon. In November 2010, Celtic set an SPL record for the biggest win in the league's history, defeating Aberdeen 9-0 at Celtic Park. Celtic celebrated their 125th anniversary in November 2012, the same week as the Champions League match against Barcelona. They won 2-1 on the night to complete a memorable week, and eventually qualified from the group stages for the round of 16. Celtic finished the season with the SPL and Scottish Cup double. The club clinched their 3rd consecutive league title in March 2014, with goalkeeper Fraser Forster setting a new record during the campaign of 1,256 minutes without conceding a goal in a league match. At the end of the season, manager Neil Lennon announced his departure from the club after 4 years in the role. Norwegian Ronny Deila was appointed manager on 6th of June 2014. He led the team to 2 consecutive league titles and a League Cup, but European competition performances were poor. After being eliminated from the Scottish Cup by Rangers in April 2016, Dela announced he would leave the club at the end of the season. On the 20th of May 2016, Brendan Rodgers was announced as Dela's successor. Obviously, as a Swansea fan, he got us into the Premier League, so I think he's amazing. His first season saw the team go on a long unbeaten run in domestic competitions, during which time the club won their 100th major trophy, defeating Aberdeen 3-0 in the League Cup final in November 2016. Celtic also clinched their 6th successive league title in April 2017 and a record 8 league games to spare, and eventually finished with a record of 106 points, becoming the first Scottish side to complete a top-flight league season undefeated since Rangers in 1899. Celtic clinched their 4th treble by beating Aberdeen 2-1 in the Scottish Cup final 2017, the result of which saw the club go through the entire domestic season unbeaten. Celtic continued their unbeaten domestic run into the following season, eventually extending it to 69 games, surpassing their own 100-year-old British record of 62 games, before finally losing to Hearts in November 2017. Celtic retained the League Cup the same month by defeating Motherwell in the final, and went on to clinch their 7th consecutive title in April 2018. They went on to defeat Motherwell again in the Scottish Cup final to clinch a 2nd consecutive domestic treble, the double treble, the first club in Scotland to do so. Rodgers left the club midway through the following season to join Leicester. Neil Lennon returned, and he secured an unprecedented 3rd consecutive domestic treble, the treble, defeating Hearts 2-1 in the 2019 Cup final. Later that month, he was confirmed as the club's new manager. Okay, we talked about the crest and colours, the stadium, supporters, we talked about that. I don't know whether I'm going to talk about secretarianism. So we've talked about the match between themselves and Rangers being known as the Old Firm, and the fact that the club was built to support Irish immigrants in Scotland at the time. So in that situation, there's a sort of religious aspect to it because of the Roman Catholic against Protestant backgrounds, but I don't want to go into that today. Okay. Celtic was initially founded to raise money for the poor, we know that. In 1995, the Celtic Charity Fund was formed with the aim of revitalising Celtic's charitable traditions, and by September 2013 had raised over £5 million. The charity fund has since then merged with the Celtic Foundation, forming the Celtic FC Foundation, and continues to raise money for local, national and international causes. Okay. So, Joe Hart in goals, Alistair Johnson, new signing as defender, Greg Taylor, Carl Starfelt, Kyogo Furuhashi, fantastic player, unlucky not to go to the World Cup, Shead Hakshabanovic, Lial Abada, Aaron Moy, brilliant player, David Turnbull, James McCarthy. Oh, that's where he's playing nowadays. Yeah, he was born in Scotland. Jota Yuki Kobayashi, the new player, or Hyungyu, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tomoki Iwata, Alejandro Bernabé, Scott Bain, Benjamin Siegrist, Matt O'Reilly. Got a picture now, I don't know what he looks like. Daisen Maeda, good player. Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor, James Forrest, Anthony Ralston, Stephen Welsh, and Connor Hazard. Albion Ajeti is another player that's got good potential. Any others? Liam Shaw, Montgomery, Marcus Johnston, Kenny, Scales, Zoro, Ideguchi. Yeah. Henrik Larsson voted Celtic's greatest ever foreign player. No shock there. Awesome. Well, I hope you've enjoyed your refreshing of Celtic history. And if you have any recommendations for the next club in this series, then please drop a comment. Click like if you've enjoyed this video. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more, then click subscribe. I do one. I'm going back in to do them every week now. And if you really love the channel, then consider supporting me on Patreon. Information in the info box. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care. Hope you're relaxed and speak soon.